Do American Baptists have bishops? We're going to talk about that today. Hello everyone, I am Landon Reynolds and I am a confirmed American Baptist, and I'll admit it right now, that title is a little bit of clickbait, if you want to call it that. I think we all know the answer to that is generally no, but it's actually more nuanced than you might think it is. I do welcome you back to the channel. This week is going to be the first week where our new upload schedule is going to be fully enacted. That being Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I'm going to put it out a new video. We've got a lot of interesting stuff coming this week. After we finish up this video, on Wednesday, I'm going to have a video for you about women's ordination, and I don't think a lot of you are going to like me after it, but yeah, that's coming. And then on Friday, we'll do something a little less controversial and talk about baptism. Anyway, today we're going to be going over American Baptist polity. And the question I asked in the beginning was, do American Baptists have bishops? And honestly, our polity as American Baptists is almost identical to that of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. So it isn't as far off as you might think it is. We are softly a connectional denomination. But anyway, also, by the way, the case I'm going to be making today is not the one that the pastor of the local church is a bishop. We do believe that, but that is not what I'm talking about today. We are going to be talking about the actual role of bishop. That being a person in a church who oversees a region of congregations. ABC does have a parallel of this, if you kind of bend the definition a little bit, which we're going to talk about. But yeah, how does the American Baptist Churches USA work? How is it structured? I feel like this is something that a lot of people don't know. A lot of people probably just assume that we're congregationalists, or that we're something like the Southern Baptist Convention or something. Maybe they assume we're like the United Church of Christ. Really, it's none of those. But I do see why people would say that, because our congregations do associate with us voluntary. We don't force them. We don't own property. However, I don't think that means you're a congregationalist, because the LCMS also lets their congregations own their property. And so does the Anglican Church in North America. They're schismatic, but I don't think anybody's saying they're congregationalist. If you are, I'd like to hear why in the comments. I don't personally believe that they are. But yes, the congregations do own their own property and do call their own ministers in the ACNA. So if that's what makes you congregationalist, I just want you to know that by that definition, ACNA is also congregationalist. If you would grant that, more power to you. But if not, I'm asking you to be logically consistent and not call us congregationalists for that either. So, another thing that kind of separates us from the more traditional convention model is the Southern Baptist Convention only exists when the convention is going on. Or, I do believe that the historic triennial convention only existed every 3 years for a couple days when the convention was going on. That is not how ABC works. We have a denominational office and regional offices. Those are actually people's jobs, and they always exist year-round, 365 days a year. The thing is, we do have a convention called the Biennial Mission Summit. We'll talk about that later. But even when that's not going on, ABC proper still does exist. So we are a year-round denomination that always exists, with people who working for ABC is their full-time job. We are a real institution. Now, beyond the local churches, which are the main body of ABC, they submit to the regional conferences, which are usually about a state big. My church is part of the American Baptist Churches of Michigan. You have the American Baptist Churches of Ohio. You have the American Baptist Churches of the South, of Indiana and Kentucky, of the Little Rivers region. A bunch of them. There's 20 or something across the country, regions of the American Baptists, where generally in a region of the United States or a state or something like that, all the churches in that region would voluntarily associate with the region, and voluntarily submit themselves to the doctrines and disciplines of that region, and agree to cooperate with the other churches and with the regional office and the bylaws and all those things of that region. And traditionally, the main purpose of this is for mission cooperation. However, there is a little bit of theology that goes on with that too. Regions can make their own policies. It's not fully a free-for-all, though admittedly in many regions they'll take you almost with anything. But there are still regions where they have a confession of some sort that they have to have you agree to, and if your church does not, then... But the leader of a region, there are multiple offices, there's usually some sort of board that governs the region, but the top figure of the region is the executive minister. This would be the bishop parallel that I was talking about in the intro. The executive minister is in charge of a region and has influence over the affairs of that region. He kind of decides the direction and what the region is going to be focusing on during his tenure, and what the churches are going to, in cooperation, strive towards. He helps with pastor transitions, so he might come assist a local church, he might preach there, he might suggest pastor candidates, do things like that. He can't appoint the pastor, but he can suggest candidates, do the things like that, help out when a church is going through a ministerial transition. And he can just give general pastoral advice to churches and regions. I know our executive minister, he likes to write letters to us sometimes about various things that are going on and how we need to focus on what's important and not let these things divide us. He might not have authority, but he definitely has influence over the churches in his region, and we definitely cooperatively submit ourselves somewhat to his authority. So depending on how much you want to bend the definition, he definitely could be considered a bishop, in my view. But of course, most people require bishop to be a apostolic office that you think is necessary, although I think that the United Methodist Church would also agree that it's more of a practical development than a apostolic thing that you necessarily need. I think they would still say that it's more necessary than we would, but I think they would agree with us that it's more of a practical development. And in some cases, he does oversee the expulsion of a church from a region. So he can do that too, if they are not complying with the standards of the region, or if they want to withdraw, he would be involved in that too and meet with them. So he can oversee all these different things. He's definitely kind of like a shepherd of the regional conferences in ABC. I would personally say that, just for simplification, if I was explaining ABC Polity to someone else, I might say that our version of bishop is an executive minister, because that is, depending on how you want to look at it and how much you want to grant to that, true. I think we do have a soft Episcopal system, and Anyway, I'm tired again. So regions then cooperate with the national office and all of the institutions thereof, headquartered in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, there and around. These national bodies include the American Baptist Home Mission Societies, the Board of General Missions, the American Baptist Historical Society, and the American Baptist Women's Ministries, I believe they're called. Some of these are self-explanatory, so I'm not going to go over all of them in detail, but first of all, the American Baptist Home Mission Society, they kind of are supposed to handle missions, but since we're a mainline denomination, we of course don't do a whole lot of that. So they tend to focus more on philanthropy, humanitarian services, things like that. And they do print resources for our denomination because they would oversee the denominational publisher, which we do have. They're called Judson Press. They put out resources for ABC. Think like church publishing for the Episcopal Church, Pilgrim's Press for the United Church of Christ. You know, almost every mainline denomination has a publisher. For the Episcopal Church, they might put out hymnals and the Book of Common Prayer. They used to put out hymnals for us. They don't do that so much anymore, but they do put out, devotionals. This is the secret place. This is like our version of Our Daily Bread. It's the closest thing I can equate this to. It's just a quarterly daily devotional put out by ABHMS. And another one is the New Manual of Worship. This is basically like our service book. It has orders of service in it and liturgies and things like that. This is my church's liturgy, the Worship on the Sabbath Day 2. It's just a service book, basically. Like, think the United Methodist Book of Worship, the Presbyterian Service Book, all these, or even the Book of Common Prayer if you really want to stretch your imagination. It's just got liturgies for the denomination to use if they so choose to. It's not forced by any authority, but if they so choose to, the American Baptists do have a book of liturgy that they can use. It's called the New Manual of Worship. I'll probably talk more about that in a future video. But the other one is the Board of General Ministries. They are basically like the governing body of ABC, if that makes sense. I think that so many people can be sent to that from, I don't actually know how that works, so I'm not going to pretend like I do, but there's a board of people who generally governs ABC during the years in between the mission summit. And then they appoint 2 offices to be like the figureheads of the denomination. The first one being the president, which the president is usually just a figurehead. I don't believe they have much power over anything. And they're alternated every year. And then you have the general secretary, the general secretary is the one who really governs the denomination. They're appointed more for like an extended period. They can be on there for years if the board decides. They serve at the pleasure of the board, and they basically run the denomination day to day. It's their responsibility to gather denomination, enforce the rules to a certain degree, things like that. Make sure the denomination functions smoothly and stays united. And the current one, since 2024, is Reverend Dr. Gina Jacobs Strain. Now then, we can finally talk about the Biennial Mission Summit. This is like what's left of old ABC, as I understand it. So like the triennial convention days, when the denomination would meet every 3 years and discuss polity and missions and things like that. So at some point it was changed from triennial to biennial. So now the Biennial Mission Summit happens every 2 years. And when it does, that's when policy changes are made Representatives from all over the denomination can come and send people to go to the mission summit to vote, as long as you meet the few qualifications that they have to let you vote. And they make big decisions for the denomination, like if they want to update the doctrinal statements and standards of the denomination, if they want to restructure the denomination in some way, like for instance at the last one, American Baptist Women's Ministries was promoted to being a national board, so now they can collect an offering from the churches if they so wish to. So, yeah, all of these things that I have discussed today make up the polity of the American Baptist Churches USA. I doubt I did a good job of laying it out, but I did my best. And all of it is voluntary, and the main unit in ABC life is still the local church, even if we're kind of a connectional denomination. So, are we Episcopal? Probably not. But I don't think we're congregationalist either. I think that we have a little bit of every polity. We're somewhat congregationalist, we're somewhat connectional, we're somewhat Episcopal. You could even make the case for somewhat Presbyterian, because we appoint councils to all of the levels. There's a regional councils, and then there's national councils. So you could make an argument that we have almost every polity in the book. We have a little elements and sprinkles here and there of everything. So yeah, ABC is definitely a very unique denomination in terms of polity, and it takes a lot to wrap your head around. I probably still don't understand it like some people do. I know that there is this one guy involved in the American Baptist Reconquista who really knows ABC policy, or polity, and I found some of the stuff he said very helpful. But that's a bunny trail. Anyway, that about concludes my thoughts on American Baptist polity. If you disagree with anything I said here, or if you saw me say something that was misinformed, or if you generally would just like to keep the discussion going, feel free to leave a comment below. And if you really are interested in keeping the discussion going, I will, of course, reply to the comments. But you can also join my Discord server. There will be a link in the description to that as well if you are interested. And if you enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe and turn on the notifications so you don't miss any of the videos I make in the future. But other than that, guys, that's all for me today. Thank you for joining me, and stay faithful.